You walk past a laundromat almost every day. You never think about it twice. But somewhere, right now, a laundromat owner is sitting at home doing nothing while 40 machines earn money without him. That sounds boring. It sounds small. But the real answer is far stranger. The businesses that quietly make people rich are almost never the ones anyone talks about. Think about what gets celebrated. A 25-year-old raises $10 million for an app. A startup burns cash for years chasing growth. Everyone watches. Everyone claps. Meanwhile, in a strip mall 3 blocks away, a man who cleans dryer vents for a living just paid off his house. Nobody filmed that. Nobody wrote an article about it. Why? Because boring is invisible. And invisible businesses don't attract competition. That's the first secret hiding inside almost every overlooked trade in America. When something looks unglamorous, most people walk right past it. Fewer competitors, higher margins, slower, steadier wealth. Doesn't that sound backwards? Let's start with the coin laundry. A single laundromat, fully automated, can run for hours without a single employee. The machines don't call in sick. They don't ask for a raise. They just work day and night, turning quarters and app payments into consistent cash flow. Industry data tracked by equipment lenders shows laundromats often carry survival rates well above 90% because the demand never disappears. People will always need clean clothes. Recessions don't stop laundry. Now compare that to a trendy new restaurant. Restaurants fail constantly. The margins are thin. The hours are brutal. The competition is everywhere because everyone thinks they can cook, but almost nobody thinks they can run a laundromat, so almost nobody tries. That gap between perceived difficulty and actual difficulty is where quiet fortunes get built. Vending machines work on the same logic. A vending route sounds almost silly when you first hear about it. Boxes that sell chips and soda, but strip away the surface and you find a real estate business wearing a snack wrapper. You're not really selling candy bars. You are renting tiny footprints of space inside gyms, offices, and apartment buildings, then filling that space with product that turns over automatically. Warren Buffett built an empire on a similar idea, buying businesses that generate cash without requiring constant reinvention. And he called it wanting a moat, something competitors struggle to cross. A vending machine's moat is boredom itself. Nobody wants to compete for that market, so the people who claim it early tend to keep it. Here's where it gets stranger. Pressure washing, an industry most people associate with viral videos of dirty driveways turning white again, has quietly become one of the fastest entry points into six-figure income for people with almost no capital. A used pressure washer, a truck, and the willingness to knock on doors. That's the entire barrier to entry. Compare that to the hundreds of thousands of dollars needed to open a restaurant or a retail store. What does something with so little competition exist right in front of everyone completely ignored? Because status gets in the way. Most people don't want to tell their friends they clean driveways for a living, even if that job earns more than a desk job with a nicer title. Status chases visibility. Wealth chases opportunity. Those two things are not the same, and confusing them is one of the most expensive mistakes a person can make with their 20s and 30s. Appliance repair tells a similar story. As manufacturing shifted overseas and appliances became more disposable, an entire generation grew up assuming a broken washing machine means a trip to the store, not a call to a technician. But appliances still break, parts still exist, and the number of people willing to learn repair work has shrunk dramatically, even as demand has stayed steady. Scarcity of skilled workers against a backdrop of steady demand. That combination in any market tends to push prices up and keep them there. Thomas Stanley spent decades studying America's actual millionaires, not the ones on magazine covers, but the quiet ones living next door in modest homes, driving used trucks, running unremarkable businesses. His research, published as The Millionaire Next Door, found something uncomfortable for anyone chasing prestige. Most self-made millionaires didn't work in glamorous fields. They ran pest control companies. They owned scrap metal yards. They repaired equipment. They lived far below their means and reinvested relentlessly into businesses that bored everyone else. Doesn't that challenge almost everything popular culture tells you about how wealth gets built? Dumpster rental is another one hiding in plain sight. Construction never stops. Renovation never stops. And every single project needs somewhere to put the debris. A handful of dumpsters, a used truck, And a phone number posted online can become a business that runs almost entirely on repeat contractor relationships. Once a contractor finds a reliable hauler, they rarely shop around again. Loyalty in unglamorous industries tends to run deeper because switching costs feel higher than the reward of switching. Junk removal follows the same emotional pattern as dumpster rental, but flips the customer. Instead of contractors, it's homeowners, often during moments of stress, a death in the family, a hoarding situation, a move that got out of hand. People pay a premium during emotional moments, not because they're being taken advantage of, but because convenience becomes priceless when time and energy are the scarcest resources a person has left. Now, here's the counterintuitive twist most people miss completely. These businesses aren't valuable because they're easy. They're valuable because they're annoying. Nobody wants to unclog a drain at midnight. Nobody wants to climb a ladder to clean a gutter in the rain. Nobody wants to deal with a broken septic tank on a Sunday. The businesses people avoid emotionally are often the businesses with the least competition and the highest willingness to pay. Discomfort, it turns out, is a moat too. Septic tank cleaning proves this better than almost anything else on this list. It is physically unpleasant work. Very few young people enter the field voluntarily, and yet nearly every home outside a city sewer system depends on it functioning correctly. When it breaks, homeowners don't comparison shop. They call whoever answers the phone fastest. Pricing power in that moment has almost nothing to do with marketing and everything to do with urgency. Mobile home parks might be the least talked about, most quietly profitable asset class in American real estate. Because they carry a stigma, institutional investors historically avoided them, leaving smaller operators to buy land, collect lot rent, and let tenants own their own homes while paying to park them. Sam Zell, one of the most successful real estate investors of his generation, built part of his reputation buying unloved, overlooked property types that everyone else considered beneath them. He described being a contrarian in real estate as recognizing value where fear and stigma had scared everyone else away. Self-storage tells a version of the same story from a different angle. As homes got smaller and lives got more transient, storing extra belongings became normal instead of embarrassing. A self-storage facility requires almost no staff once it's built. Locks get rented, not products. And because moving is stressful, customers rarely negotiate. They just want somewhere safe, fast. Locksmithing sits in an unusual middle ground between trade and emergency service. People don't think about locks until they're locked out. That single moment of panic, standing outside your own home at 11 at night, turns an ordinary service into an urgent one. And urgency is where price sensitivity disappears almost completely. Welding and metal fabrication repair is disappearing from public consciousness, even as manufacturing, agriculture, and construction all still depend on it daily. Trade schools report shrinking enrollment in welding programs even as demand for skilled welders remains steady across industrial regions. When an entire generation is pushed toward four-year degrees, the trades left behind quietly become scarcer. And scarcity, paired with real demand, is one of the oldest wealth formulas that exists. Bookkeeping might be the least physical business on this list, but it might be the most reliable. Every single business, no matter how small, needs someone to track money coming in and money going out. It's unglamorous, it's repetitive, and it's recession-resistant because businesses need clean books even more urgently when times get hard, not less. Walker Deibel, who studies small business acquisition closely, has argued repeatedly that the safest path to wealth often isn't starting something new and unproven. It's acquiring or building something boring, cash-flowing, and already proven to work, then improving it patiently instead of reinventing it entirely. In-home senior care is quietly becoming one of the largest workforce gaps in the country as the population ages. Families increasingly want their aging parents cared for at home instead of in facilities, and the number of people willing to do that work hasn't kept pace with demand. Every uncomfortable, physically demanding job on this list shares that same pattern. Demand keeps rising. Supply of willing workers keeps shrinking. And price follows that imbalance every single time. Parking lot stripping and maintenance almost never crosses anyone's mind until they notice faded lines in a grocery store lot. But commercial property owners are legally and practically required to keep lots marked, safe, and maintained. It's low competition precisely because it looks too small to matter, right up until you realize how many parking lots exist in a single city. Gutter cleaning, HVAC maintenance, and general handyman work round out this list, not because they're exciting, but because they share the exact same DNA as everything mentioned so far. Necessary, physically uncomfortable, low glamour, low competition, high repeat demand. That combination, quietly, again and again, across completely different industries, produces the same financial outcome. ATM routes deserve a closer look too, because they sound almost too simple to be real. You place a machine inside a bar, a smoke shop, or a small convenience store. The store owner gets a cut of every transaction fee. You get the rest. No inventory, no spoilage, no customer service line. Just a small metal box quietly collecting a few dollars every time someone needs cash in a hurry. The entire business model rests on convenience. And convenience, it turns out, is something people will almost always pay extra for without a second thought. Mobile car detailing follows a strange psychological pattern of its own. A car wash is a commodity. Anyone can drive through one for $15, but a detailer who comes to your driveway, who treats your car like it matters, taps into something closer to pride than cleanliness. People don't pay $200 for a clean interior. They pay $200 to feel like their car, and by extension their life, is under control. Understanding that distinction between what a service does and what it actually sells separates the businesses that struggle from the ones that thrive. Dryer, vent, and chimney cleaning sit in the same uncomfortable category as septic work, mostly because they're invisible until they become dangerous. A clogged dryer vent is one of the leading causes of house fires nobody thinks about until an inspector points it out. A dirty chimney can fill a home with carbon monoxide. Fear, when it's grounded in something real, tends to make people act quickly and pay whatever the fix costs. Nobody negotiates hard over a fire hazard. Knife and tool sharpening might be the smallest business on this entire list, and yet restaurants, butcher shops, barber shops, and landscaping crews all depend on sharp blades daily. A single sharpening route through a city's restaurant district can quietly generate a stable, recurring income with almost no advertising required. Because once a chef finds someone reliable, switching feels riskier than staying. Tree removal and stump grinding combine physical risks with heavy equipment, which naturally keeps the pool of competitors small. Insurance requirements alone push away casual operators. But storms don't check anyone's schedule. When a tree falls on a roof during a storm, the homeowner isn't comparing 5 quotes. They're calling whoever can show up first, and they're paying whatever that urgency costs. Snowplowing operates on a version of the same seasonal urgency, except the entire year's income can sometimes get compressed into just a few winter months. A single plow attached to a used pickup truck can service dozens of driveways and parking lots in a single storm, and because missing a plow means a blocked business or a stranded family, customers rarely shop around once they find someone dependable. Pool cleaning and maintenance quietly builds one of the steadiest recurring revenue models in home services because pool owners almost never want to deal with chemistry, filters, or algae themselves. It becomes a weekly relationship instead of a one-time transaction, and weekly relationships compound into predictable income far more reliably than one-off jobs ever could. Pet waste removal sounds almost like a joke until you realize how many households now own dogs and how little free time most of those owners actually have. A service built entirely around a task nobody wants to do themselves can run on nothing more than a scooper, a truck, and a subscription model billed automatically every single month. Scrap metal and recycling collection connects an old-fashioned trade to a very modern reality. As construction and demolition continue nationwide, metal keeps getting discarded, and someone still has to haul it to a yard and get paid by the pound. Commodity prices fluctuate, but the underlying supply of scrap never really stops flowing, which makes it one of the oldest recession-resistant businesses in existence. Notary and loan signing services fill a strange gap most people never notice until they're buying a house or refinancing a mortgage. Every closing needs a notarized signature, and title companies pay a flat fee per appointment regardless of how simple or complex the paperwork is. A single person with the right certification can schedule several signings a day, stacking small transactions into a surprisingly steady income. Estate sale and downsizing services exist at the emotional intersection of grief and logistics. When someone passes away or moves into assisted living, families are often overwhelmed, unable to sort through decades of belongings on their own. A business that handles pricing, staging, and selling everything, taking a percentage instead of a flat fee, gets paid precisely because it removes a burden nobody wants to carry alone during an already painful moment. Notice the pattern running underneath every single one of these, from laundromats to estate sales. None of them require a genius idea. None of them require venture funding. None of them require convincing millions of strangers on the internet that something new is worth trying. They require showing up consistently for a task that already has proven permanent demand. So why does almost nobody talk about this? Because attention flows toward excitement, and excitement rarely flows toward reliability. Venture capital chases the next unicorn because a single enormous win can cover 100 failures. But you're not a venture capital fund. You don't need one business to return 100 times your money. You need one steady, unglamorous business that keeps working while you sleep. That's the modern mirror in all of this. Somewhere right now, someone your age is scrolling past a laundromat, a vending machine, a pressure washing truck, thinking none of it looks like success. Meanwhile, the quiet owner behind each one is building the exact kind of financial life that most people spend their entire careers chasing and never reach, simply because they were too busy looking somewhere flashier. Consider what all 20 of these businesses actually have in common when you strip away the trucks, the tools, and the specific tasks involved. Every one of them solves a problem that already exists for a customer who already has money set aside to solve it. Nobody has to be convinced that dirty laundry, dead car batteries, clogged gutters, or broken appliances are real problems worth paying for. The demand was never in question, only the willingness to serve it was. That's different from most modern business advice, which tells you to find a passionate niche and convince an audience a brand new problem exists before you can sell them a solution. These forgotten businesses skip that expensive, uncertain step. They start with proven pain instead of unproven passion. There's a quieter cost hiding underneath all of this, worth naming directly. Choosing an unglamorous business means choosing to be underestimated. Friends might ask when you're going to get a real job. That discomfort filters out almost everyone who isn't serious, which means less competition for the people willing to sit with it long enough to build something real. Thomas Stanley's research keeps circling back to this exact idea. Wealth in his data correlated far more strongly with frugality, consistency, and unglamorous work than it ever did with income alone. Plenty of high-earning doctors and lawyers ended up with almost nothing saved, buried under lifestyle expenses that match their income instead of falling beneath it. Meanwhile, a scrapyard owner with modest spending habits quietly outpaced them year after year simply by keeping costs low and reinvesting steadily into a business nobody envied. Walker Deibel's research points at the same conclusion from an entirely different angle, focused on people who buy existing small businesses instead of starting new ones from scratch. His data suggests that acquiring a proven cash-flowing operation, even one as plain as a laundromat or a HVAC repair shop, dramatically improves the odds of long-term success compared to launching something untested. Existing customers, existing systems, existing cash flow from day one. The unglamorous businesses on this list already come with that advantage built in, whether you start one from nothing or buy one that's already running. None of this requires luck. None of this requires timing the market perfectly or predicting the next big trend before anyone else sees it coming. It requires noticing what's already sitting in plain sight, then being willing to do the work everyone else is quietly avoiding. You don't need a novel idea to build wealth. You need an old idea nobody wants to touch. The next time you walk past something boring, something dirty, something nobody brags about at a party, look twice. That thing you almost didn't notice at all might be the real answer.